I would like to call this meeting of the School District Budget Committee to order. I ask that you all rise and please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would ask our veteran Chuck Mower to lead us, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First of all, welcome to another season of Budget Committee meetings. It was almost a year ago, 11/28/17, when we met for the first time last year. My name is Stanley Heinrich. I am the current chairman of the School Budget Committee. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome back all of our returning members, and I would like to welcome our new members, Mackenzie Murphy, Brian Stisser, Jillian Savage, and those are our new members. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm gonna get to that, Chuck. Don't worry. I just want to, for the record, Shelley Jacoby is excused. She got called out of state early this morning for her job. At this time, what I want to do before we start our budget review of last year's budget, I would like to go around the room. I would ask if you would please introduce yourself. Let us know about how long you've been on the Budget Committee or if you're a newbie, and any other brief personal comments you might like to share. And I'm going to start down at the corner down here with our trusty, dusty school board liaison.
Which leaves me less to say, because now I'm the school board liaison. My name is Naomi Schoenfeld. This is my third time around, I believe. Yes.
I'm Amanda Heidberger, and this is my second year on the committee.
And I'm Mackenzie Murphy. This is my first year on this committee.
Kevin Bobbitt, this is my 5th year on the committee, I believe. Obviously a resident of the town, 2 kids, one just graduated the high school, one is a freshman.
My condolences.
It's going all right. He's at UNH having a good time. So.
I'm David Ilg, 4th year?
Something like that.
Yeah. I have 3 kids at the elementary school, so.
I'm Carol Lang. I've lost track of how many years I've been on the committee. It's probably getting up close to 20, but I'm not sure of the exact count.
I'm Gillian Savage. This is my first year and first meeting, and I have 3 kids, one in 3rd grade, a kindergartner, and a 3-year-old.
Brian Stisser, also first year on the committee. I have one little one who will enter the school system either next year or the year after.
Hi, I'm Chuck Mower. I'm a native of the town of Merrimack. I've been participating my entire life in community affairs, and I like to stay in touch with what's going on in the school district by serving on the Budget Committee, where you learn a great deal about who wants what and why they want it, and we get to decide if we think those things are prudent or not. And I think of myself as a neophyte, quite frankly, in that every year is a new year, and every problem is a new problem, or an old problem with a new angle, or whatever. So yeah, I'm very glad to be here, and I'm glad we have a full complement here. That's wonderful. Nice to meet you all.
And over to our left is Pat Heinrich. She is our secretary. She is also the clerk of the Merrimack School District, and she's also my spouse. And my name is Stanley Heinrich, and this starts my 32nd consecutive year on the Budget Committee. And we have 5 kids and a dog and 1 beautiful granddaughter. And that gentleman sitting at the other end of the table there is Matt Chevenel, who is the Assistant Superintendent for Business. And before we get to Matt, I do want to ask you that with the paperwork you got this evening, and we're going to go over some of it later, but one of them is the info sheet for members only. I ask that you check this over for accuracy, and if you have any changes, and I know there are at least one or two, please see Pat and give her the information so she can reprint this. This is for our use, not, it doesn't get put out on Facebook or anything like that. What we got to do first is Matt is going to review with us last year's budget. That is one of our jobs as the Budget Committee, is to review it. We obviously can't change what's been spent, but we can see what has been spent, where it's been spent, what's been saved, et cetera, et cetera. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. Good evening, Mr. Chavanel.
Good evening. I've been with the district in this capacity for 18 years now. I've had the pleasure of working with most of you, and especially Mr. Heinrich, for all those years in a row on both his role in the Budget Committee and the School District Planning and Building Committee. Learned a lot from Mr. Heinrich, and learned a lot from, of course, Mr. Mower, who's been here for a very long time.
Excuse me, Matt, is your mic on?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. I'll try and project a little bit more. I wasn't sure. So it's truly a pleasure for me. Before that, I worked 2 years in Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District, and then I was 8 years as the finance director for the town of Hooksett. So I've been around for a while, and I've been here for the longest, and I intend to stay here and ride this through until you no longer want me at your table. So this is my career path right here, and I truly enjoy the Merrimack School District and what we've accomplished over the years and what we've done together in a good spirit of cooperation, how the community, I don't mean to make a speech, but how the community has really supported everything that we have done through passing labor contracts, through passing important warrant articles, through passing a multitude of things. New school, public kindergarten was our latest victory this past year. And I just want to say thank you to the hard work you guys have been doing, and thank you to the community. So with that, I want to do a couple of things here. I want to go over 1718, which I'm required to do. And I want to give you a peek into the future, because on the last page of this document, I brought a copy of the capital improvement plan that the board is currently looking at right now. So you would be in the loop, because you will perhaps be seeing some of these items pop up in the operating budget that we're working on right now, that we're going to finalize for the school board on December 3rd, and or some sort of warrant articles, or perhaps not at all. But we're going through the process right now. So as far as 1718, we run a July 1st, 2017 to June 30, 2018 fiscal year. Most school districts operate that way. It makes a lot of sense with the teachers' contracts and everything like that. And so this is really looking at how that year closed out. So we closed out with a $2.9 million surplus. Our budget, just general fund, is around 71 million, a little bit over that. You add in food service and Fed funds, it gets up to around 75 million. So $2 million out of a $71 million budget is not too bad. It's not a unheard of surplus. It's actually a little bit on the low side for my liking. Our surplus, just so some of the new people know, I know everybody else has heard this before, any surplus that we have by law goes back to reduce the taxes on the school district's portion of the tax rate. So that $2.9 million went back to reduce the taxes for the bill that was just received. So this is money that we can't retain. We could put a warrant article on the ballot to retain a certain percentage, but the board has not wanted to go that route. And Personally, I would rather stay away from that decision at this point in time to see how many other districts do it and see how it plays out and see what the legal ramifications of having that done. Now, if I'm a town, if I work for a town, I can retain surplus. It's all done through a vote of the town council or the whatever form of government a town or city has. They can vote to retain, you know, $7 million worth of a surplus on a $22 million budget if they choose to. And if they want to let some back to reduce taxes because they want to take away peaks and valleys, they can do that also. But everything that we have here in our budget going forward gets returned at the end of the year, if not spent for another purpose, to the taxpayers. So at the end of this year was 2.9. That's made up of when you under-expend your budget and you over-collect your estimated revenues. You don't have to do both at the same time. Either one or the other will give you a surplus if the numbers work out. But the appropriation surplus is around $2.2 million. The professional salaries item, and I just broke this down into categories that I personally see. If you have any recommendations for the future, I think these 16 items kind of make it easy for me to kind of understand what happened in the year, especially when you're dealing with, you know, a 16-page budget and maybe 600 different account codes, to break it down in a, you know, certain large chunks of things that have meaning to everybody. So the first item is professional salaries. When we build a budget, we build it a year in advance. We build it based upon current staffing that we have in place. We take the staff, we roll them up on the salary chart. If there is a collective bargaining agreement, we put them in the budget as is. We make modifications depending upon enrollment projections. We look at that. We look at the future. We look at, do we need this position? Should we change this position to another position, swap roles sometimes? But basically, you know, when you have an attrition rate of probably around 10%, our number of teachers is around in the 344 range. We have around 344 professional staff, not to count the principals and the assistant principals, but, you know, 10% of that is around 34 people. So the turnover is around 34 people a year. So you have new people coming in. Sometimes they come in at a lower rate. Sometimes they come in at the same rate as the person that they're replacing. Sometimes they come in a little bit higher rate. You don't really have any way to predict that. We have been seeing a trend that they have been coming in at a lesser rate. We're getting kids out of college. A lot of the hires we have done have been master's degrees with, you know, like maybe 1 year experience, or master's degrees right out of college, and we can certify them and work with them. That's what we've been kind of looking for. And it all depends, you know, what position you're looking at. If you're looking at a position that requires a lot of experience, a lot of dedication, a lot of being tried and true under fire, if you're like in the special education field, that's always something that comes at a premium. To get somebody like that, sometimes we have to pay a little more to get them in. We have to look at somebody who has, you know, master's plus 15 years experience. And that all kind of dictates where they fall on the salary scale. But every year we have some sort of savings. We have been doing that. And so this is the personnel savings from that budgeted amount of $23 million. We also have a retirement incentive. Right now, the rules for the retirement incentive, and that is dictated by the teacher contract, the collective bargaining agreement, is we have to provide it for 7 people in the district. They have to be over 55 years of age and have at least 15 years in the district. And then it's done by a weighted scale that the teachers came up with. Used to be done just by, you know, a combination of all the seniority. Now it's several other points on the spectrum to see who will get that incentive. And that's to move people along, to help them make career choices later on in their career, where perhaps, You know, teaching is a tough job. I've never done it as my life's work. I've done it little spits and spurts, but never every single day. And it is something that is very demanding. And to have the ability to be able to retire when you're 55 or 58 or 60 and get this incentive, it helps them along. And a lot of times it helps us too, get new blood into the district. No disrespect to anybody leaving who's retiring. We've had a lot of people who've retired at a very late age. That was a tremendous loss. Ginny Crook, if you ever remember that name, she was absolutely fantastic. And, you know, she left us when she was probably around 70 years old. And she had a motor on her where she probably could have gone for another 10. And amazing person. But, you know, she left, she got the incentive. That was good for her, and that was good for us because we were very happy with her. So we had a little more than we had budgeted for. We try and guess. You know, we have a list, we have a schedule, we have it all mapped out, but then 2 or 3 people who said they were going to take the incentive don't take the incentive, so you get a different mix in there as far as what their salaries were, because it's based, the amount of the incentive is based upon how many years in district, and then what's their final year's salary. So that can fluctuate. Support staff salaries. When you are a custodian, a food service worker, a administrative assistant, a para, I don't want to forget the paras, the para professional, you're part of the support staff. And when you leave us and we have to hire new, we can't hire. The contract is situated so if you're new coming into the school district, if you have 10 years of experience as a para in another district, that doesn't count. You start on step 1. So if you leave us and then we have somebody else coming in, we usually can reap the benefits of taking them at a lower salary because we have to per the collective bargaining agreement. We have 2, the teachers and the support staff, which is the custodians, the paras, the administrative assistants, food service people, library assistants, everything like that. And so we had a savings there. And by having salary savings and whatnot and having the mix of people, we had a savings in the benefits line. Health insurance, sometimes you get years where you have an enrollment crew that doesn't look like the one you've had previously. You have a lot of single people coming in. You have a lot of married people with maybe family plans moving on to another district or moving to retirement or moving someplace else. And so that was a big savings for us in New Hampshire retirement and health insurance, not in dental insurance because we overexpended that line a little bit. And that kind of gave us the $1.4 million savings in benefits. The maintenance item number 5, that was, there's a story behind that one for some of you who are new here that kind of pains me to talk about, but I'll talk about it anyway. The reason why that was overexpended was because of the James Mastrocola Upper Elementary bat mitigation process that we went through. I had 2 people from the state, Marjorie Schoonamaker, who's been there for 40 years, and Amy Clark, who's an engineer, both from the DOE, both from School Approval Division. And Amy's been around for a good 20, and they had never seen anything like it. And I remember Marjorie saying, this is going to cost you $600,000 to mitigate, you know. Because I initially had put in, there was a grant associated with this. So I had put in a smaller amount, and she advised me, make it $600,000, because you're going to need every penny of it. And so I took her advice, and I did. And guess what? We did. So that's basically what the remediation effort cost us from start to finish, complete operation, taking down the masonry. We'd go in sections. So we'd have the mason, Michael Isabel from Complete Masonry, Merrimack resident, went to Reed's Ferry Elementary School all the way up. And we had Jesse from Critter Control, another Merrimack resident, went through Reed's Ferry Elementary School. And he was the mitigator with the Tyvek suits and all the equipment and everything like that. And Jesse was the mason, so the two of them were working together. And it's hard to look at a project like that and define the scope when you don't know what the scope is going to be. So what we would do is we hired them. They gave us what their rate would be and, certain caps on things for the job. And we all understood that, what we were going to do and what their mission was. It was kind of more to define the problem and then resolve the problem as it presented itself. So as we go along the wall, it all started from a smell in a classroom where there was a unit ventilator coming through the wall. We took a piece of the molding of the window off and then peeked into the unit ventilator. We saw some bat feces in that area dried up. So we cleaned that out, thought we were good. That was just the beginning. We would have the mason contractor take direction from the bat remediation specialist, who would saw cut a 2x2 window in the brick up on the second story, and then saw cut another one on the bottom. They'd look around to see if they could see any of the bat feces that were coming down the walls. And if they could on the top and they could on the bottom, that section of wall would have to come out. Then they'd move on, do it again. So very deliberately, they moved around the corner of that building to the tune of like 120 linear feet of brick, 2 stories tall, that had to come down before everything was clear and everything went away. All the rooms were fogged, all the rooms were cleaned, all the furniture was taken out of the areas and thrown away. The brick was not recycled, the brick was hauled away, the brick, it would have been not cost effective to take the brick, chip the mortar off in a controlled area where you wouldn't let all the bacteria get airborne. So it was quite the process. We handled it as every new challenge raised itself, and we got through it. But we also got some money that shows up on the revenue side, because I wanted to take the money and I wanted to apply it towards the expense. But the Department of Ed said, no, we don't want you doing that. So when I applied for the grant, which was $600,000, and they were going to pay 30% of the $600,000, the state of New Hampshire granted us with $180,000 to offset that cost. So when I took that in, I had to take it in as revenue. We also had a emergency repair capital reserve fund set up that you guys set up in the past, and putting been money into it via warrant articles that had around $225,000, $230,000 in it. We took around $225,000 of that, leaving $5,000 in there, and then we used that to offset the cost of this. So we had 2 sources of income, one which was homegrown that we had put away for emergencies, and this fit the spirit of the warrant article when it was created years ago. And so we had that to try and offset the pain, and then we had the money coming from the state, which was the school funding grant that was done by Governor Sununu and administered by the DOE and the state of New Hampshire. We also, it doesn't show up in here, but just as another aside, we got some money for security cameras for the budget, and we have $50,000 worth of cameras in this year's budget right now, and we've got a grant for 80% of it, so they paid like 40% of the cameras that they paid for. So that's money coming into us to offset the cost of those cameras. So that's something that we haven't brought before the board yet, because the project just got finished, and now we have to go through the paperwork and have the board certify everything that the money was spent, and it's spent appropriately, and we'll be getting all that documentation and paperwork together. So that was an interesting piece. So that's why you see the over expenditure in that area. The next area we have, it's a large part of our budget. It's something we do and something we do exceedingly well in this school district. Any of you here or listening in, TV land have any kids that need to take advantage of our special services department? It was called special education. It's now called special services. I think we have one of the better programs around here in the state. It's not only our duty to take care of these kids and give them a free and appropriate public education per law, it's our moral obligation to do that. And even though we saved money by building programs in-house, so we wouldn't have to do out-of-district placements for kids. And it's always better when you can keep a kid in their home school, in their local placement, even if you have to provide multiple supports for that kid to flourish and to feel comfortable. That's always preferable than to put them in an outside placement. So that's what we try and do. And it saves you money on tuition, and so that's why we had a savings in the area of special ed. Contracted services are just those services that we contract out, like our internet services, our the Power School, which is our student information system, all the other items that we had. And, we put budget numbers in there, we renegotiate sometimes, and sometimes we change vendors. And we did that during the 17-18 school year. And so there was a savings of $76,000, around a little less than 10%. Equipment repairs are all the service contracts we have for all the copiers, all the printers, all the tech that we have. And that was pretty much spot on, but there was a $4,000 savings. Transportation, we have a contract with STA, Student Transportation of America. They've been a very good partner in Merrimack School District. They've served us well, but they've had challenges. I don't know if anybody has watched, well, we all watch the news. There's just so much coming at you. It's hard to separate what are the interesting things you should pay attention to in your own specific industry and what are the other things that are just a distraction. But there was something on the national news talking about, the national bus driver shortage and how at least the state of New Hampshire was trying to do something from a state level in order to attract more bus drivers. The good thing about a good economy is a lot of people are working. The bad thing about a good economy is, when you want to find help and you don't have a job that's particularly appealing to a lot of folk, which I can understand. I don't think I'd want to be a bus driver. You're in charge of the safety and well-being of 30 kids, 40 kids, however big the route is, however long it is. And you have to all do that with, looking in a mirror, looking with their back towards you, so with your back towards them, I should say. It's a tough job. We do a lot of work with the bus drivers. We have them speak with our teachers. We have them have bus driver breakfast appreciation days over at all the schools. We've really kind of built a bridge between them, so they really have an idea of how we do things and how much better to handle certain situations from a discipline area. It's not like it's the old days. The old days, they were a contractor, we hired them, they did their job, and we just kind of stayed away. Now we've pulled them into the fold for the last probably 7 or 8 years, especially when STA came on board. And we see them as an asset, because they can really set the tone for the day. So we've been doing some work with them. And Julie DeLuca, she's one of our assistant principals over at Thorntons Ferry Elementary School. She's kind of in charge of the mental health committee
social emotional well-being. We've worked a little bit with bus drivers on how to recognize certain things, because it just doesn't take people who are formally trained in this area, but somebody who has a little bit of knowledge to just notice something and say something to somebody else who can follow up on it to try and avert something. So bus drivers, food service workers, even the custodian in the building, daytime. So many kids during the day develop a close relationship with the custodians. They're popular people. Not everybody has to be a healthcare, mental health provider, professional in order to get some tools and to try and work on this situation with us. So that's an important thing we do with the bus drivers and with everybody else that we have working for us, even though that's not their primary role. We go down to telephone, printing, advertising, phone bills. We've been saving a little bit on that every single year. Supplies, we pretty much expended out. Same thing with text and instructional materials. Software, there is a great need for software. We're always looking at how to do something better, and if it requires the purchase of something, we will look into it, and we will first check with other school districts in the area. Wyndham and Bedford are really kind of close to us as far as how they utilize PowerSchool, the student information system. We've all been kind of on board with that. There's several plugins you can buy, but now PowerSchool is really taking over the industry. They've had meetings with the state of New Hampshire to try and become the student information system for the state, because there's other programs you have to buy in order to read their test data, and those are quite expensive. So if PowerSchool can provide that service for us, they want to get in on that, and they want to streamline the whole process of how to capture, maintain, and analyze data. There's a whole unified classroom section of PowerSchool that goes with our, I'm getting off topic, but you're here and I'm talking, so I might as well just go for it, right? We've started up with a learning management software system in PowerSchool. That's going to be and has started to be very effective. What it does is organize all your assignments so they can be turned in online. It's a real friendly piece for parents that they can look in and see what's going on, what assignment is due, when it's due. It's a friendlier interface than anything else that we've done with, and it's developed through PowerSchool. So Nancy Rose, our Director of Technology and Library Media Services, she's been working with that, and with Mark Merrifield, who you'll get to know that name too if you don't already know, who's a true asset to the school district as far as his dedicated work ethic and how much of a good trainer and teacher he is on all these systems that we can use. But we want to that's our goal for the student information system. We really want to tie it all together. It's been something that's been very slow. I remember back in the day when we first started it, teachers used to use their grade books, and they had this book, and had a red binder on it because red meant, that's really important. So they had their grade books, everything was manual. They would go and put it in the system at the end of the week, and now we transitioned over to teachers building their grade books in the system, students being able to see their assignments, parents being able to see their assignments, and we can see what the volume is as far as who's looking, not necessarily who's looking, but what role type is looking. Students look at that thing 10 times a day. They'll look at it. Parents will look at it like maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times a day. So we know they're hitting the site. We know they're keeping track of it. We know that they're involved and they know what's going on, because when I went to school, my parents didn't know anything until the report card came home. Or maybe it said sometimes it didn't come home. I don't know. But this is like a much better way of knowing things when you need to know it, and to be able to be more proactive in your kids' education and their well-being, for the long run. So I think this is something we're really going to work on. and we have been working very hard. So that's what the software purchases are that we're looking at. Equipment, furniture, every year we usually have an equipment replacement plan that will replace certain percentage of classroom furniture over the years. We started that probably around 10 years ago, and we're getting to the point where a lot of the chairs that we had that had broken welds, that weren't particularly in good condition, have been replaced, so we're kind of nearing the end of that for a while. But we'll see what the future holds. The last one, just meetings, membership, record checks, you know what that is. And then our bonded debt. We are going to be, and I didn't bring it with me, and I probably should have, but in the year 23-24, that's going to be our last year where we're making a debt payment on the middle school, or any school, or any project. So in the year 2024-25, we'll be absolutely debt-free at that point in time. We'll have no bonded debt. And that'll be really a good position to be in from a financial standpoint. It'll give you guys a lot of flexibility for the future when you need it, because money's cheap right now as far as on the bond market or at least purchase market. And if you wanted to tackle a larger product and do a financing on it, it's a really good time to do that, especially in the position that this school district would be in. I've personally never seen a school district have no debt out there at all. And when we have our financials looked at, we have to give copies to Moody's, to S&P, and we get rated. We get rated on a couple of things. How's our fund balance looking? Is it appropriate for the size school we are? And if you have a fund balance that's like $3 million, $4 million on a $76 million budget, they look at that and it says that's an indication that they've been doing this, because you've got to report 5 years. That's an indication that they have the ability to pay their bills when they need to pay them, and to pay their bills in the event of an emergency, because their cash position is good because the fund balance is good. So the fund balance isn't a bunch of receivables and a bunch of assets that are just air. It's real cash in the bank. So they look at that and they say we're a good investment, so we're more liable to get good financing for any future projects we may want to do or may not do. But the option's there. If you had a district that was running in the red all the time, and those are out there, it's a heck of a lot more difficult when you need something to get the people to loan you money because of how you've operated your school district in the past. So the bonded debt piece, there was a bond that was renegotiated. Usually every year with the interest rates dropping by, we dropping down, we talk to the municipal bond bank where we do all our business, and we call them up and say, hey, what's going on? Do you think we could take a look at going out in the market and see if we could do a little refi on this thing, not extend the terms, but get a better rate? And they're usually pretty accommodating, and so they save us some money every single year that we didn't anticipate. And that's exactly what that is. So that's the piece on the appropriations. And the revenue portion is we received some Medicaid money from the state. We had the bat mitigation money, the $180,000 coming in that we didn't anticipate, because we didn't anticipate about being a wildlife sanctuary at the upper elementary school. And then I got to tell you, I didn't have as many gray hair last year at this time before we got involved in that. And then we had money coming in from the Capital Reserve Fund, so that kind of propped up our unanticipated revenues. So when you bring those in, it came to $2.9 million. Is there any questions? I've been going for a little bit, and I feel like you guys maybe want to spring forward and just,
No, we already did the fall back thing, so I think spring forward would be good, it'd be warmer weather.
oh, okay. All right.
Anybody have any questions
Yeah,
so far
yeah.
for Matt?
I don't want to make this a monologue. I want to kind of keep it entertaining for you, so.
Hey, it's almost as good as Stephen Colbert's monologues at 11:30 at night.
Oh, really? I don't think I'm awake to see those.
Carol?
Yeah, a couple of quick ones. One thing, I know we don't currently do it, but has there ever, to your knowledge, been discussion whether at the administration level or at the school board level of possibly in a future contract, somewhat modifying the thing about support staff having to start at the bottom, even if they have years of experience? Because it seems to me, some support staff that probably works just fine for, but it seems to me there are other support staff positions where we could probably benefit if we could pay somebody a little higher if they had a lot of experience and benefit from that experience, and I didn't know if that's ever been discussed.
Well, it has been brought up in the past. It's nothing, I don't want to go too deep into this. It's nothing they have brought in as a want or a need. It's something more on our end what
Right.
we'd like to do.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
And there's a cost associated with that. The contract's got a couple more years on it, then it'll be renegotiated, so I'm sure it'll come up again, we'll have a conversation.
Well, you know me, I usually try to bring these things up a year or two before the contract.
Oh, yeah,
just so
yeah, no,
get the wheels
absolutely.
turning and thinking.
You know, it's nice to know that you are amenable to that kind of conversation, because I think in a lot of positions, it does kind of hurt us with who we can bring in
Yeah.
and who we can't.
My next question is on the retirement incentive. Since we slightly overexpended that, does that imply that we're having the teachers that are retiring are the ones that are getting the higher incentive, or what's the reason behind that being overexpended?
Well, you have 7, and they're put in order, and you have those top 7. And then they're assigned a value and everything like that, and we know exactly what they're going to be. But sometimes those top 7, they drop off. So somebody else rises to the level. They could be making a higher salary, so they're going to get a higher incentive.
Right, that's
And
what I was wondering.
happened there.
Okay, that was what I was guessing. I
Yeah.
just wanted to see if
Yep.
my guess was right.
You are correct.
Okay. When you were talking about the bond rating, when we go to borrow, are they looking at the school district's financials or the town as a whole's financial?
When both of us go to borrow, be it the village district, the town, or the school district, they look at they all need copies of our financials, because they don't look at us separately.
Right, okay.
So, because I know when the town needs to go for a bond, or MVD needs to go for a bond, I have to provide financials that helps
Okay.
them out, yes.
So we're helping the town, but hopefully the town is helping us too,
Yes,
in
yeah,
a way.
no, the town is doing very,
Yeah.
very well with their retainage. They have it up at an appropriate level.
Mm-hmm.
All I can say is positive things about what the town is doing with that, because having been on that side, there's the temptation to give it all back to get a quick hit, and then the next year, you're not feeling so good about it because reality has hit you.
Right.
But they've built up their surplus now to an acceptable level that DRA approves of, and I think is prudent. It helps them out in the long
That's good.
run. Yeah.
Okay. Next question is I'm not sure what the term to use, but the filter system that we were putting in for the
Oh, yeah.
water. How did that impact the budget? Did it cause us to over or under expend, or?
No, they came right on in, right to the penny.
Okay, that's
Um,
good.
It's a nice system.
Yeah,
It really is a nice system. That was a good decision, and I'm so glad we made it, because seeing what's going on with St. Cobain right now and how they're hesitant to do whatever, it just reinforces the idea that the board made the right decision at the right time to get it done and not wait.
yeah,
Because it wasn't, especially with the parts per trillion being knocked down from 70. You know, it used to be 100 was okay, then it was 70s okay, and now there's new information coming out that, I don't know what the latest number is, but maybe 10's not okay anymore. I don't know what it is. Did you have?
It's about 10 points per trillion.
Yeah.
And we are much more than that, so it's a huge concern. New Hampshire has the highest rate of 4 types of pediatric cancer, breast cancer, esophageal cancer, and bladder cancer. So, to see young people struggling with these things too and becoming sick because of the water, I think it was a strong investment on behalf of the schools. So, thank you so much for doing that for our children.
No, thank the board and everybody. But it was, there was a watershed moment. Yeah. I didn't really mean that, okay? But, initially, when you go into these things, I'm not familiar with this. Tom and I are trying to work with it. Tom Tussaud is our facilities director, and without him, I'd be totally lost. But, initially our thought was to filter all the water at the source coming in to the schools. And it's kind of like, well, geez, you don't have a structure big enough on your building to contain what you're going to need to filter in all the water. So then we thought about, and this was the company's Second Winds solution. Why do you want to filter water that you're going to flush down the toilet? Filter the point of use. We said, okay, that sounds like a reasonable idea. And so we got the whole thing done for, every single water fountain, every single, the sinks in the kitchen, the sinks in the teacher's room, everything that people would drink out of. It was filtered for the entire district. We have 0 PFOAs. That's their guarantee, 0. It's been tested out to be 0 or non-detectable at all the schools, at all the locations for $128,000. And it's like, for $128,000 to be able to say to the parents of this district that you have 0 PFOAs in your school district water and you're safe here, that was money well spent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And one last question is, when you were talking about Power School and you were talking about now the way they can digitally upload homework assignments, et cetera, has there been any impact on that with the change in, not the actual homework policy, but the implementation of the homework policy? Has that impacted how Power School deals with homework?
No, because you can set up any parameters for it. You can have it be graded but not have the grade count. So teachers can still grade it, so the kids could still get input, but they can check a little box, does not count towards GPA.
Okay.
And that's all they have to do.
Okay, so
It's
it is
pretty simple.
addressing the
Oh, yeah.
change that we made.
Yeah, it was built for that, because there's some assignments that teachers like to give, that they'd like to give a grade but don't really want it. They just want to see how kids are going, and see how they're coming about, but they don't necessarily want that counted towards the final grade or anything like that.
I think the students and the parents appreciate the feedback too. Whether it counts towards the grade is
Yeah.
an entirely different discussion, but
Yeah.
at least to get the feedback so you know how the student is doing. So
Yeah.
I think that part's a good thing.
Yeah, and the whole thing, we started off with online registration a few years ago. That was something that the board wanted to do. So we worked on that, so you could do online registration. You're going to register your kids online. You don't have to go to 4 different places. You still have to do the paperwork that needs to be photocopied and we need to have a certified copy of. But the online registration was a way to automate that process, and from there, then we're taking it to other areas that we want to do. And that's
Yeah.
part of it, the learning management system. You gotta, these software programs aimed at schools, this is more like on the frontier as opposed to been around for a long time.
Right.
So it's hard to believe, because in industry they do so many spectacular things all the time. But in our world, it seems to be, we're a little bit lagging. What do you mean you can't, put in an assignment online and just click a button and just, have it go to the teacher? Teacher gets a receipt, You know when the teacher's read the receipt, the teacher can correct it online, email it back to you when it's all done, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. You know, that should have been that way like 10 years ago. But it's not.
I wish it had
And
been.
these software systems that we have, and the one we have is one of the largest ones in the country. And we've been on board with them for a lot of years.
Yeah.
So when we say something, they listen. We have, in the state, there's a Power School user group. It's held at the Bedford SAU, because they got a nice SAU with a big meeting room. And so we go there, Bedford, of course, goes there, Goffstown, Wyndham, Pelham, all the towns go there, and we always pick up good information from that. And we definitely play an active role in trying to guide them as to what we need.
Yeah.
So,
Does this system also address, I mean, I'm going way back now. I'm old enough to remember the days of arena scheduling, which I know is,
that was one of the first things I was told when I got here. This is from the board now. I think it was Rosemary Rung who said, I think she said it like this, too. We have to get rid of arena scheduling,
amen.
you know? And I says, okay, I'll do that tomorrow, Rosemary. That'd be awesome.
Right, and I know we did
But-
get rid of it, but now
Yeah,
I'm
but
wondering
that was
if
the
this
piece.
system has now,
This is the system that got rid of arena scheduling.
oh, it was the system. I thought there might have been a
Yes.
middle step where we did something different.
No,
Interesting,
this
okay.
was the system that did that. And that's how long we've been involved, and that's how long it's been evolving with us.
Off the top of your head, do you remember what year we started using Power School?
Yeah, it probably, let's see, I came here in 2000, we didn't have the network till 2000, 2001. So I'm thinking 2001, 2002, that probably was the first year of implementation.
Okay.
And I thought it's going to take a year or two to implement fully, and it'd be smooth as cake after that. And gentleman that used to be on the school district planning and building committee was also an engineer, I think, with HP. His name was Wayne Morrison. Nice gentleman. He says, Matt, I don't think you understand. This is going to be like 4, 5, 6 years before you finally get this running in a giant implementation thing like this. He was right, you know,
Yeah.
so,
Okay, that's it for my questions.
yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Carol. Brian?
So you mentioned for the transportation, which it looks like is the largest percentage variance, that was driven, it sounded like, by the driver shortage and the contractor not being
Yep.
able to staff the routes.
Yep, because we get rebates on that. They are working at getting drivers, and they've accommodated us as best they could. And if they're not going to run the route and they're going to double up, they're not going to charge us for the route.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if they're not able to staff the routes and the doubled up routes are working, has there been any review of if the routes could be streamlined based on their actual availability to fulfill?
Yeah, we have thought about that. But the doubling of the routes are working on a short-term temporary basis, and parents understand that. That it's going to take a little bit longer to get home. Your kid may be on the bus for 45 minutes to an hour, and they understand it when it's intermittent. If it was status quo, I don't think it would work. The best scenario, you know, you can have less kids in your district, but you still have the same size town. So it still has to go, the bus still has to go up, what is that, Wilson Hill Road, all of a sudden into Amherst, and you're turning around, and, you know, even if there's one kid or there's 10 kids. So it's not really a function of ridership, it's a function of ridership, where the bus stops are located, and they always seem to be located in the same spots. But where is the bus driving to? You know, the only way to cut down truly on the number of buses you have, because it's a function of number of kids and time on the road to cover the distance, is to annex, I don't know, 300 acres off to Amherst or something, and then we don't go in that section. But there are sections like that. So, yeah, it's something we're constantly looking at, like, hey, you know, we've done this double route for a while. Is this something we could take a look at?
Or even reconfigure the routes
Yeah.
to eliminate the doubling
Yeah.
and just have more efficient routes.
Yeah, all the routes are looked at every year. STA, they GPSed all their buses so they can tell in real time. So they've been on board lately with mapping out everything, and they have a ride optimization program that they're trying to work out to see what it would look like to reconfigure things and run different scenarios. Because in the old days, it's done with push pins on the map, and you're drawing the same line that's gone up that same road for the past 20 years. But a lot of times where the bus stop was 20 years ago is where the bus stop is now. It's just funny that way. But yeah, they're looking at that every year, because that'd be a good way to cut down the number of buses, save us money, do it more efficiently, get the routes done on time, and not have to worry as much about the driver shortage.
And then on the software, are there any firm metrics on which the performance of PowerSchool is evaluated to see if it's returning the value that it's projected to, or is that more of a subjective evaluation?
It's more of a, I'll be honest with you, it's more of a subjective evaluation. We know what it needs to do for us, and yeah, I couldn't even pretend to list off any firm metrics that we would evaluate that on. We just know from an anecdotal and a flow kind of analysis how it's streamlined things for us, but we haven't taken a look at that in the way you mean.
Okay.
Chuck?
Matt, could you possibly give us a dispositional and financial update on our most recent land acquisition?
That would be the Brentwood building?
I'm sorry, Matt, I don't believe it belongs to
Well,
Brentwood anymore.
Yeah, that's what we were calling it, for lack of the red building.
Oh, Red Building's fine.
Red building's
I
fine?
think we should stop calling it the Brentwood property. We have purchased it.
Yeah.
I assume we closed that deal.
Oh,
But I'm
closed
waiting
that
for your
deal.
full dispositional and financial report on that.
Okay, well, let me kind of tell you what we've been doing and where we're at right now. We hired an engineer to go through the building and provide a report to the school board as to the current status of the building and what it would take to maintain it for year 1, year 2, year 3. We also had a meeting with John Manueli, the fire marshal, and the building inspector, and Tom, myself, to go through that building. And John Manueli said that right now, as it stands, he would not allow us to occupy that facility. So he recommended that we contract with a certified fire engineer, which we have. And he has visited, we got approval from the board to do this. And so he has visited the site to give us his recommendations of what we need to do in order to occupy that in some fashion on a short-term basis until the board comes up with a set plan as to how they want to move forward with this building. And I think from my perspective, the answer to that is they're seriously considering that becoming the central office of the future, and whether or not it would be more cost-effective to look at that building and try and renovate, or look at that building and tear down and rebuild. That's something that we talked to the Planning and Building Committee about. They have given forth their ideas on this, and now basically, you know, the board is going to be looking at the same thing. Whether or not they're going to have an answer this year for something that's going to be on the ballot this year, I don't think that's going to happen. But I think it's going to take a little bit more time and study to see what the best plan of action would be on that building.
Can you tell me what the estimated cost of raising the building is?
We have a proposal from one local contractor that we trust and we do business with. And I asked for just not raising the building. I wanted everything to be put back the way it was. I want the building taken out in a systematic fashion. There is some asbestos there. There's like 5 different boilers. All that stuff needs to come out. You just can't take a dozer and just level it and then it's because of the proximity to the neighbor's house and everything like that. So it's going to have to be a systematic approach. I'd like all the foundation work dug out. I like everything filled back in with some clean fill, leaving us a solid pad to construct it. So that's the scope, okay? And that price would be around $250,000 to do that work.
Could you remind us once again what the acquisition price of that property was?
$275,000.
And before we can actually utilize the building, utilize the property in any constructive way, we will have a little over $500,000 sunk into it?
If the board would like to entertain the idea of going through and raising the facility, that is correct.
It sounds as if there is some question still hanging in the air about how we are going to utilize this property?
I don't think there's a question. I think everybody's thinking that it is going to be the SAU office. How it's going to become that, if it's going to be a renovation or it's going to be a demolition complete and then rebuild from scratch, that's still a question that I believe is on the table right now at the board's level. They just received the capital improvement plan, of which this is on there, on December 3rd. And so they're going to be, was it December 3rd or the 19th? December 3rd, yeah, okay. Last meeting, yeah, I know, okay. And then the next meeting on on December 3rd, I meant to say November, I'm sorry. On December 3rd, they're going to be debating that in public session to come up with some sort of final recommendation.
I'm sorry, Matt, did you say they're debating or are they proposing?
They're having a conversation regarding the best plan to go forward with this property into the future. So it's not so much one side is debating, it's more of a, I think what they want, the main purpose of what they want to do is when they have the conversation, they want everybody to hear what they have to say. They want to do it out in the open. And so they're going to sit there at the table and they're going to talk about the different things. They're going to mention numbers. Everybody's going to hear what they're going to say. And in the end, you know, perhaps there'll be a decision that the way to go is to raise the building. The potential cost would be $250,000 to do that. Not this year, but next year we put that in the operating budget or maybe bundle that into the cost of the construction, which, when you're doing that, could be much less than $250,000 because you only have to, if you're going to demolish and construct and you're going to use the same firm or the GC is going to sub that out, you have a thing called general conditions. You know what that is. You park your trailer out there, you mobilize your equipment, you get all your subs on board, you know, that you're going to incur that cost no matter how you go. So it would make sense if you were going to do that To construct the building, to do the demolition is step one, part of the contract. Construct later on. You only incur one set of general condition costs, which are, temporary telephone lines, facilities, everything like that, and do it all as one big project. And then look at the entire complex to see how that would affect everything, and look at different traffic flows too, with having the green and the blue building potentially gone, to see how that could alleviate. It's more of a holistic plan as opposed to, let's just knock it down and build a building.
So when can I expect clarity of purpose relative to the actual use of this property that we acquired,
I think after the next meeting you should,
which is
December 3rd.
December 3rd?
Correct. Next Monday.
And the agenda item is listed specifically as,
Well, it'd be capital improvement plan, I believe. I did not craft the agenda. The superintendent does that.
well, I did notice that it's on the capital improvement plan.
Yes, it is. So we're going to be talking about the capital improvement plan, of which this is an item. I don't know if it's going to be specifically called out as far as that fine a detail. It may just say consideration of capital improvement program, which this document is online, and it shows everything there.
Well, I would just like to say that given the financial investment that we've made and the anticipated financial investment that we've made, it would be nice to have some real clarity of purpose relative to the application of this property to the school district's best interests as expediently as possible. And I would hope that it is not hidden in some vague discussion about capital improvements that may or may not ever take place. I'm one who is looking as a taxpayer in this community to see the clarity of purpose develop quickly and be publicly transparent as soon as possible.
I think that is precisely what the board wants to do. I think you've framed it in such a way that I don't get into crafting the agenda. That's not in my job description. But I will go back to the superintendent and talk about highlighting this capital improvement plan, and perhaps looking at, discussion on items in CIP to include the central office at, however it's worded, to give visibility to it. Because I know there is going to be a big discussion on that. I don't know if you want to add in anything, Naomi, or jump into the...
Yeah, no, I'm happy to jump in as much as I can help, but for the most part, in some ways, Matt, you're freer to talk about it than I am, because I don't want to move ahead of the conversation before the board has had it. But I share your desire for that clarity, and I think that a lot of what we're doing is intended to make sure that we move in steps that provide that. And if that isn't happening, or if people go back and look at the conversations we've had and they feel it's not accomplishing that, that's something we'd very much like to know.
Chuck, at the last Planning and Building Committee meeting, this topic came up for discussion. And consensus of the majority of the Planning and Building Committee was hit it with a D9 and let's start from scratch. But to satisfy people that feel you could just move right in there, we got to do the due diligence of showing it's a, 60-something-year-old building, something like that, that was built in sections. It's, quite frankly, inside it's a dump. Put it bluntly. And, if you go to renovate it, yeah, what's it going to cost? How long is it going to last you, if you got any thoughts about that. Is it going to give you the use, or you're just better off tearing it down and starting from scratch? Also, looking at the cost analysis from, all right, there are 2 other potential spots you could build a central office. Might it be more prudent to do that? A lot of the stuff we didn't know, we couldn't know until after we bought the property and got in there and got to look behind the walls and under the floors. And unfortunately, anybody else that, if they would have bought that property, would have been in worse shape than we are, because at least as a school district, we own all the land around it. You wouldn't be able to tear it down and put something else up there. It wouldn't work. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But I know the Planning and Building Committee is pretty strong about what they want to have happen. But it is, it's up to the school board to decide what to present, and then it'll be up to our voters to decide, okay, do we want to spend the money or not? We'll see. Are you all set?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am all set for this very moment.
Okay. Any other questions so far for Matt? Matt, are you just going to briefly go over
I just
the food service budget and then capital?
yeah,
capital
food
improvement?
service budget.
Okay,
Yeah.
because we want to get moving along here.
The food service budget, I just did a quick overview. Basically, where we're at is on page 3. You can see the detail of the revenues and expenditures. Right now, we started off with a $35,000 fund balance. We have revenues and expenditures of revenues are a little bit higher than the expenditures. That's good. So it added to the fund balance that we had at the end of 17-18, which is $43,083.96. Food service, for those who are new to the table, is it's a special revenue fund. I almost forgot the accounting term for it. It's a special revenue fund, whereas it's self-supporting. It's not supposed to have any impact on taxes. The money they collect through food service sales, state government reimbursements, free and reduced lunch reimbursements, are to be used solely for the program to offset the cost of running the program and to build up a reserve in order to support the program if any capital needs are required. So when I said initially that any surplus that the school district has from the general fund has to go back to reduce taxes, any surplus that you have from the food service fund is kept in food service to be used to sustain the program into the future. So, and that's what we've been doing. I don't know how many years ago, we bought the food service automation program because when I first got here, they were using register tapes and, those big things with the handles on them and count the money, and it was like, oh my gosh. And so we had to get a computerized system to take care of that. Point-of-sale terminals, just like you see at any restaurant nowadays. It's not a nice to have. You absolutely have to have it, because from an auditing standpoint, and our food service program is audited rigorously by our auditors, Plodzik and Sanderson. We use the same audit team as the town of Merrimack does. I'm familiar with Plodzik and Sanderson for at least 30 years. They're terrific auditors. They leave no stone unturned. So any point of weakness you have in your system is going to be in that area, because there's cash going back and forth. And to have those point-of-sale terminals and have everything tying out and all the bank deposits verified by 2 and 3 people of all policies and procedures we put in place many years ago to keep that program the way it should be. and that's definitely a necessity. So in the budget, you could see in food service an upgrade to those point-of-sale terminals, because they are a little bit old, and we need to keep that computerized equipment to maintain a good audit track and trail of everything that goes in and out of that account. And that'll probably be in the food service budget, but you haven't seen it yet. Nobody else has, so, but I'll just give you a little preview, saying it's just us. Questions?
Any questions on food service? We are now going to move on to the
Yeah.
capital improvement plan.
Let's get into the future here. So this was approved by the Planning and Building Committee, then it went to the school board, and it's going to be discussed next Monday night. This is our capital improvement plan. We have to, by statute, do this, and our process is a little bit different because we go through the Planning and Building Committee, which is the only elected Planning and Building Committee that deals with schools specifically in the state of New Hampshire, so we're kind of unique in that way. But it's very helpful to go in front of this committee before you get to other committees and other committees, because, you know, it's a reality check, and it's their guidance and their attentiveness to this portion of their charge is always welcome and always appreciated. So we go through them first, they put their mark on this, and then we go in front of the school board, and we let the school board know what the Planning and Building Committee did to the original document that we went before them. And so this is what came out of that meeting. Now it's at the school board level. After it is changed, modified, whatever you see here, by the school board and voted in its final form, that will go to the town of Merrimack, and just like the police department, the highway garage, the finance department, public works, we will have to go before the town of Merrimack Planning Board to present our capital improvement plan. Because what they do is the town will take all the departments that are associated with the town. They will take everything with the school district, the MVD, and they will blend them into one document. So it shows, and it helps them with their master plan. That's a whole nother thing. But it shows, you know, what level, who's doing what, how we can time things. Sometimes we get in conversations off of this saying, oh my gosh, you're going for a highway garage, you know, maybe this isn't the best time to put up a superintendent's office this year for ballot vote. Sometimes those conversations are very helpful to have, to know what everybody else is doing, because we don't want to be at cross purposes. So this is a good document for that, and knowing what the others are up to is only to our benefit as a whole to see how we can move forward. But this is just, you know, we have the first item. I'm just going to go right through real quickly, or however you'd like. But roofing, we've been on a mission to replace these roofs in our school district. All these roofs have 35-year warranties. We've been proactive on this. We've got a roofing plan that goes out quite a bit. After 24, 25, it drops off a little bit. And then there's a period of perhaps 10 years or so where there is nothing to be done until we get to the second wave. So we used to have a capital reserve fund for roofing. We used to be able to save up for this. But we got behind the 8 ball a little while ago, and it's taken us a good 15 years to dig ourselves out and get back in good standing with the condition of our roofs. If you don't take care of the roofs on your facility, especially these buildings, I forget what Tom uses for 11 acres of roofs. It sounds right, correct? That's a lot of roofs, and they're all flat roofs. And these are multiply, insulated, everything like that. Last thing you want to do is have a roof that leaks, and even if you can't see it, What we do, and Tom does, is goes around with a consultant from Garland Roof Manufacturing, and they do like a thermal imaging scan of all our roofs. And you can tell by looking at those scans where it's wet, even though it's not leaking through to the classrooms, because there's heat loss coming through. Insulation gets wet, heat just rips right out of that building, and if you've got a big red signature print right in the middle of a big roof, you know it's wet, and you know there's no insulation value anymore. So that's how we kind of determine what has to be done. So these are lined up as our best thinking right now, what needs to be done over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. They may flip-flop a little bit, but they're not going to deviate too much. We may be in a position where the board asks us, could we not do a roof this year because there's something else more pressing? We'll make that evaluation, we'll give an honest answer, and we'll go from there. Sometimes there is, because these things are looked at every single day. The next one, every single day. Every single year, at least twice a year. Next item we have is paving and sidewalk. We've had this on the CIP to pave O'Gara Drive. If you drive down there, it's a little bit choppy, and it is what it is. We own that roadway. The town doesn't own that roadway. I always thought we owned Lyons Road up by Reed's Ferry School, and the town owned O'Gara, but when we asked recently, we owned O'Gara and we own Lyons Road, so we've got to replace both of them at some point. And what we want to do is, when we do that, we want to put a sidewalk in from Babusick Lake Road, up O'Gara, going all the way connecting to the existing, maybe redoing the existing, because I think it probably needs an upgrade. And then going in front of the high school, and it'll work in conjunction with the town center committee that promotes sidewalks in the town. And there's a lot of people during the day who make this loop that go up O'Gara, go in front of the high school, come down McElwain, go in front of the upper elementary school, and they'll do it 2-3 times, and that's excellent for people to have that advantage, but a sidewalk would be good. So it's something that we've kind of made a statement to the town center committee that we would be up for that in 2020, 2021 when we do O'Gara Drive. And it might blend in nicely with a central office at that point in time, so maybe we can look at traffic patterns and do a whole plan around that whole high school complex, because I think the way it is configured right now, it needs somebody, probably Steve Keach, I'll throw his name out there because he's the guy we always go to take a look at it and maybe make some suggestions on how can we better manage the traffic, how can we better make this a campus that works and flows correctly. Sometimes it feels like you're in the middle of chaos. They're high school kids, they're in their cars, they want to get home. I've been there. I was probably one of the worst ones around, but it just needs a little organization. That's all. And maybe this could be part of, with the SAU office, a part of an organization of the traffic flow around there. So we have paving, drainage, MES. In front of MES where the Smith Gym is, when you stand in that area, there's probably a 4 to 5 foot difference between the entrance of the Smith Gym doors and when you stand at the bottom of the parking lot. Steve's drawing up some plans, going to give us some recommendations as to how we could solve the drainage problem, how we could have things sheet off, how we could take a look at the entrance to Mastrocola Elementary School and make it appear more visible through either doing some curb cuts and doing some sort of plantings that would identify it as the entrance, because it's real hard to find that if you don't know where it is, and the Smith Gym to kind of give that some more purpose and to make that climb up the hill through those triple doors ADA compliant to level everything out, because right now it's not there. We go paving drainage. We're looking at doing the parking lots at the high school right out front. And then in 23, 24, we're looking at doing the parking lots against the Everett Turnpike, right next to the Everett Turnpike over here, which primarily are teacher lots up here and then student lots down the end. So they haven't been touched since, I think, 97. It's the last time they've been done. So we've definitely gotten the useful life out of them, but it's time to replace. You see Brentwood property for SAU consolidation. I'll make a mental note to see if we can delete the Brentwood on that. I can recognize you and say, yes, sir, go ahead.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
I just wondered if the Safe Schools partnership is dead and gone and over with, or if there is in fact any spark or ember of a partnership there that could be applied to these sidewalk, entrance, etc. improvements.
The money for the Safe Routes to School with John Corrigan, we were working with him. We went through Southern New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission to come up with a plan. The thing is, the project needed to be $400,000. This isn't a $400,000 project. It's an $88,000 project. So after we went through...
We have a penchant for easily making it a $400,000
We
project.
could absolutely, once if we embellish it and,
Well,
cover it and heat it.
there may be an advantage to sharing all of that on a larger scale program,
Yeah.
if in fact we can get help from somebody.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't think the program has much money left, if anything. So as far as getting money from the state for that, I don't see it happening. It doesn't meet the thresholds. And, we're on our own on this one.
Brian, go ahead.
So you said the threshold is 400,000.
Right.
You were referencing the repaving and the sidewalk potentially having some interplay between the two projects. Could the two of them conceivably be put together as a single project, if only for this purpose? Because that would put it just over the 400,000 threshold.
You mean the O'Gara Drive, the sidewalk? I'd have to make it come up to around. They wouldn't do O'Gara Drive. We've already said the sidewalk in the plan specifically, and they wouldn't pave a road for us. So no, we've tried that, and we were told no, you can't go that far with it. But if it was a longer sidewalk or something like that, but the only way we could do that is if we went and actually tried to build a sidewalk on town property or state road going over the highway or something like that, or Joppa Road going to the middle school. But those are town roads. We can't spend money on that. That's not part of a school purpose, is to build a sidewalk on a town road. So that wouldn't be applicable either.
Even if there's, it sounds like some re-engineering or redesign of the roadway that would need to happen for the sidewalk to be viable, that would still be outside of the acceptable scope of...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Matt.
go ahead. All right. Yep, you have the SAU consolidation project. You see in 2021, there's a demo/build. That's a recommendation by the school district planning and building committee to raise the existing building and build brand new from a differently configured footprint. There is an advantage to doing that. Because currently, right now, the building as it's situated is very close to the abutter's property line, And if we were to redo the building, we could put in the proper setbacks and become totally compliant without a need to have any sort of waiver from the zoning board or the planning board or whoever we need to get it. And we could not impact the future financial value of the abutters property. So that would be an advantage to that, have a brand-new footprint with the proper setbacks. Because right now, building's a little bit too close to our property line. Bleacher upgrades? You look like you want to say something, so I'm just waiting. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Bleacher upgrades, this is for the James Mastrocola Upper Elementary School, the bleachers in the all-purpose room. Those, this is the APR, it's where you're going to vote. Those bleachers are around 4 or 5 seats high. They're wooden. They've been there for a very long time. They've definitely lasted. The only thing is they don't have railings on them, so making ADA accessibility kind of a little bit impossible there. We like to put some bleachers, much like we have in the high school, that have those railings. Same thing with bleachers in the Smith Gym for $155,000. Those are a little taller. I think they're 8 rows up, and that can be a little bit treacherous when you're walking down those without railings. You have to trust the shoulders of others as you walk past in order to get down if you're up top. So we like to replace them, make them ADA accessible, and make them pretty much what we have in the high school and the middle school. Upgrade. This is a new item to the CIP. It kind of came out of conversations with Honeywell as far as ventilation goes. We started taking a look at our existing boilers at the schools. They're well over 30 years old, and it's time to look at them and be realistic and ask ourselves, do we want to wait until we have, one fail and have a school be cold and without heat, or do we want to plan for their replacement? So we're putting in this on the capital improvement plan for the first time to plan for their replacement. There's 3 at MES for $350,000. Part of that is because the boilers in MES heat the Smith Gym also. They also heat part of the upper elementary school. So even though because of the way the buildings were brought together, they were separate buildings and they were joined, and all the mechanicals for one building heats another section. So even though it is in MES physically located, it does provide heat for part of the upper elementary school. So these units would be in MES, and then we look at the high school for 4 units there, and then we go back to Muse for 2 units there. So like I said, these are original. What we did when we did the gas conversion is convert the burners, but we didn't convert the boilers because there wasn't a cost benefit to it. But now in looking at them, it's something we want to put some visibility on, so that if something does indeed happen, there's not going to be, well, there'll be a surprise, but we want to budget for it so we can start taking care of these, because this is kind of like our next roofing system, our next asbestos hill that we have to climb. So we're putting them down on the page, and we're coming right out and saying, there they are.
Go ahead, Carol.
So when you eventually get to actually implementing this, are you looking towards converting the boilers also to be gas?
Oh, they're gas now. The boilers just boils the water. The
Right.
burner is the gas thing.
Right.
So there'll be something called, I'm going to use the wrong term, I don't want to say incandescent. Do you remember what the term was that Tom used? Boilers. No, something like that. I thought it began with a C or had a C in it. They're going to be different boilers. They're going to be a smaller footprint. They're going to be gas specifically.
Okay.
So the efficiency, and Tom, I remember Tom saying this, the efficiency on those guys is like 97%, where these boilers is still around like 87%, 88%. So even though they have the gas burners on them, they still have to heat the water up. And the new ones they have nowadays are much more efficient. We haven't calculated how much energy we can save off of these, but, you know, this is what we're planning to do,
Oh,
so.
Okay, thank
It would
you.
be a different system we're looking at.
All right.
I gotta find out what that is, Naomi. Yeah, okay. Let me go on. The next thing we're looking at is we've talked about this before in 21-22 and 23-24, the window replacement at the high school 2 times. F section going down that hallway, basically first floor. These windows, they've lost their thermal insulating integrity, so they're hazy looking on the inside, and they've also lost their capacity to be locked securely. So we do the good old-fashioned Yankee way, and we get a stick and we put it in the window, and that stops anybody from the outside from opening the window because there's a stick there. And that's on a few of these windows, but they're all pretty much in the same shape. So we want to start doing that as part of a high school renovation project, and maybe looking at others in the district where we can kind of start going around and replacing windows. When we built the 3-story addition right next to the current superintendent's office for $5.9 million, part of that project, in addition to renovating the weight room and the trainer's room and everything like that, was to replace the windows at the front of this building right here. So there used to be aluminum-clad windows with white shades, and when you drive up to Merrimack High School, you saw all the different white shades at different levels, and that was one of the first things that struck me. And when I found out that was part of the plan with the high school addition back in 2000, a lot of those areas are re-bricked and resized, and there's new windows in there. There's black shades, so everything looks nice. But it's they're a good thermal barrier. They're newer. Well, they were in there for like 18 years now. So, but they've been in there. They have been working very well. So we want to kind of continue that around the rest of the high school where it needs it in isolated spots. And then this is kind of the plan. I think this first effort contains around 52 windows on the high school on the first floor. Next, we have the artificial surface upgrade for Merrimack High School, the football field, the soccer field, the lacrosse field, or whatever field you want to make it if you put artificial turf on it. That's approximately $1 million. Tom and I met with a vendor from Field Turf, who's done all the schools in the area. Bedford, Wyndham, Exeter, has done Gillette Stadium. They have most of the NFL franchises. He came down, took a look at us. There was always the question, seeing we put the track in first before we did the field. He says, yeah, you can definitely protect the track surface. There's 3 different options we can give you, but we think, this one would be the best option for, the type of surface it is, because it's a rubberized track, so they have to be a little bit more careful. But they're coming up with a price, but this is in the ballpark of the price we're looking at right now. So it'll be around $1 million, maybe a little bit more. But they would take it down maybe 8-10 inches, regrade everything, put new drainage in, lay the lay the artificial surface. We're looking at a life expectancy of 15 years. That's what we spec'd out. That's as long as they go. So once you put them in, you know, there's the maintenance cost. It's actually cheaper right now to maintain the field, the artificial surface field. We could contract with this company to come in who has a machine that costs around $170,000, and twice a year they can go through it and brush it out and just refill whatever they need to refill. And it's a lot less expensive for them to come twice a year than to us to try and own a machine ourselves and play it out with our own maintenance crew doing the work. Much better product, guaranteed product. If they're maintaining the field, it's going to help with warranty issues. They would also take care of that then. So there's a lot of stuff we're kind of learning right now, but that's something that was initially put in 22-23 by administration, that got moved to 19-20 by the school district planning and building committee, hence the arrow that points to the left, to just give you an indication where it was and where it wound up to be. So we're doing our homework on that one and trying to get something that would be reasonable and plausible and something that would last. The idea would be if the community went with this, we're thinking, well, I'm thinking, let me put it that way, this would obviously be a candidate for a warrant article on the ballot. I wouldn't want to put this in the operating budget, just like we did with public kindergarten. Put it out there. If they want to vote on it, they can vote on it. If it wants to be a petition warrant article and the board doesn't want to go there, so be it. That's a good route too. So this would be something that we would look at possibly for this year. Who knows? Possibly for next year. It all depends on the will of the people who are looking at this as you've been talking about it for 10 years. Maybe it's time to do it. You would gain more utilization from the field. You would not have to ship teams to Reed's Ferry or to Bedford to practice because you can't use that field. The band could practice on it. He did say band people use flat-soled shoes. You'd have to give them something else because the flat-soled shoe. We learned a lot today in this nasty day here, because the flat-soled shoes act as like little pads that compress the field, and we don't want that. You're much better off with football players, runner, or soccer players, or lacrosse. They're even worse than football players, the lacrosse players. Just running across that thing and just, mixing it all up as opposed to just, marching in place. And they actually said they've got an app where they can scan the field, find out where the spots that need attention are, much kind of like thermal imaging, but not really. And it'll just scan your field. It'll tell you what you need to do. And when the guys come to do the maintenance and the recovery thing, they know exactly which areas to pay more attention on too. So there's a few things we've discovered, but it's coming to shape, and so we'll have some good numbers for the board if they want to entertain this and this location. So the next item we have is the technology.
Matt, hold on. I think Brian had a question
Yeah.
on the field.
So on the field, it sounded like there would be some cost savings in terms of better utilization. And
There
not
would.
having-
Initially, when we started looking at this, there really wasn't but a lot of cost savings. It was like, you think it's going to save you a lot of money, but there's a lot of work to be maintain these. Well, there still is. But now the people who sell the products are providing the service too. And that's what we do with our playgrounds. We have a certified playground company come down, inspect those playgrounds, make sure the mulch is 4 inches thick, it's the right kind of mulch, it's certified mulch, all the bolts are done, everything, whatever, they give us a certificate. This playground has been inspected by, certified in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Rhode Island, and we get one of those, and it helps us out with our peace of mind, and it also helps us out with our insurance carrier that just loves to see stuff like that. And we do too. So we would have them do that type of work.
From purely the financial perspective, would the net cost savings at any point actually cancel out the $1 million capital cost of the project?
No, no. It wouldn't be net neutral. We're talking maybe we could save $20,000 a year. Rough number off my head.
Carol?
When you're doing that cost analysis, though, wasn't there also a question of if we did not go with artificial turf, that we were going to then have to redo whatever you call non-artificial turf, regular turf? So it's not a true $1 million cost. It's the difference between the cost of redoing it with grass as opposed to artificial turf.
Well, I think the way, is if you don't overuse your field, and you water it and you fertilize it and you take care of it, it's good. This field looks really good when the season first hits. It's just the wear and tear over the course of the season. And so I don't think we're thinking about doing any sod or anything like that. Grass that grows naturally sod grows naturally from the ground, but it's like a transplant from another area. Is always better and more hardy if it's grown in place than if it's brought in. So no, we're not thinking about doing any sod, but just maintaining it as we have done in the past.
The nice thing about the artificial turf field, yes, it's expensive, but it gives you so many more uses for the school district, which should be its primary use. And as a secondary use, if the school wasn't using it, there are different groups in town that would be able to utilize it. It also would help you bring in some more revenue into your town by people visiting and buying souvenirs or food and stuff like that. And you could host more items. Right now, the way the field is out back, you can't possibly put all of the sports on there all the time. And the football team can't even practice on the main field. There's an expense involved? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes. Yes, Kevin?
I think it's important to note that we don't even have home fields for several of the high school varsity teams.
That's correct.
In our own town. So, yeah, there's a cost, but it seems odd that we pay other private entities to use their facilities so that we can have varsity and JV and other teams play out of town. Obviously, this will cost more money than what we pay for that, but I think it's important that kids play sports in our town.
You could also use the field basically 12 months out of the year, as long as you can plow the snow off of it. Yes, Brian?
So where I was trying to go with my question is, you've mentioned a couple of areas where either there would be additional revenue or additional cost savings in not having to rent facilities from another town, maybe being able to host additional events that would bring in revenue. So if the voters are going to be making a choice on a $1 million warrant article, approximately $1 million warrant article, I think it would be beneficial if we knew what the net cost over the 15 years was going to be. Because if after we factor in all of those costs, it turns out that it's actually going to save us $200,000 over that 15 years, then that actually is a lot easier to swallow for voters, particularly very budget-conscious voters, versus simply it's $1 million AstroTurf field because it would be nice to have. If it's in terms of here are the areas where it is either going to provide additional revenue to offset the costs or where it is actually going to reduce costs in something else. If that comes out to be greater than the $1 million over the 15 years, then that would make it a lot easier to sell.
Any other questions on the capital improvement plan? Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Before you leave, budget books. You have a release date yet?
We're going to be passing them out to the school board on December 3rd. So,
After the 5th?
yeah, I think that'd be good.
Okay.
Because it's going to be, we're in the final stages of budget development, and we know what the bottom line is, and now we're going through and we're doing another pass. So it's going to be right up until the board meeting that we're putting these things together. They're going to be hot off the presses, as they say. And then we want to publish them online, but.
Do you
I
want to
think the
make them
5th.
available for the Budget Committee on the 5th, the
The
6th?
5th, the 5th would be good, yes.
5th would be good?
Yes.
Okay.
That'll be good that we will guarantee you all the rest of the books are put together.
And for
The
those
CDs
of
are
you
in there,
that are
everything.
new to the committee, you get this lovely, what is it, 3-inch binder? I don't know, something like that.
4.
Book that has everything in it from A to Z on the budget. It'll be your responsibility to go to the superintendent's office and pick that book up, because you do have to sign for it. And you will be using that book a lot in the next 6 or 8 weeks. All right, so it'll be after December 5th.
And they will all be online, so if some of you like the book, you can bring the book, and some of you want to look at it online, you could dial it up on your computer and look it online. That's what I have a tendency to do, because I just kind of like it. But, the books are nice, too, because you can write in them, put notes, but plus it'll be a historical memento from your time on the Budget Committee that you can look fondly back years from now.
It's great when you run out of electricity and need to start the fire,
Exactly,
after you've got done using the book.
right.
Matthew, thank you very, very much. And I imagine we will be seeing you soon.
Absolutely.
Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Next on our list is the 1920 budget. And as I just said, the budget books will be ready the 5th at the superintendent's office. What this committee has done in the past is have liaisons to all the different departments. In your little packet of things tonight, you found a liaison sheet to request what you might like to do. It has all the departments. It is asked that you please fill that out to the best of your ability. If you don't get it done tonight, that's cool. But the sooner the better. And put down your number 1 through 3 choices if you want to do some extra stuff. And typically what happens is new members are teamed up, teams of 2 or 3. A couple of times we have a team of 4 with different departments. You physically go and meet with the department heads. You get to talk to them, find out their needs, wants, questions that you may have received from other budget committee members. And then when we have our budget review nights in January and the beginning of February, you get to present what you found and what you think. And you're doing this out of the purview of a camera or anything else, because it's a meeting between you folks, and you can talk candidly as you want, and you might get a different answer than what you might think. You never know. But it is a very valuable tool, and for those of you that are new, I urge you to think wisely, and if you want to do extra assignments, by all means, please do so. And we don't have a set schedule yet. That is forthcoming, but typically what we have been doing is we will start our budget review, department reviews, towards the latter part of January, after we've had our meetings with the different department heads. You meet on Tuesday nights, 7 o'clock. We always try to be here, because we can get it videotaped by Merrimack TV. And then we go into February. We build in a few snow dates. And on one of the nights in February, we review warrant articles and have a work session to make our adjustments to the budget. Then another snow date, just in case. Then there is a final work session with a public hearing where we open the floor to the public and they can come and give us their views on different things. And then we close that public hearing, we go back into our regular normal meeting session, and we make our final recommendations and take a final vote of what we're recommending for an operating budget to the voters of the school district, and also of any warrant articles as to whether we're going to recommend or we don't recommend. Then, in March, we have school district meeting, where you get to sit up front with your heads, with your backs of your heads towards the people, and hopefully they're not going to throw anything at you. And that's where the deliberative session occurs, and then, of course, the election in April. I would like to remind everybody that according to state law, you are allowed you're allowed 3 unexcused absences without any problem in a row. If you have a 4th one in a row, you are automatically removed from the committee. It's not a case of you don't have any choice. That's state law. In order for you not to make 4 meetings in a row, given our short meeting schedule, you basically can't be here at all. And all it takes to be excused is a phone call or an email before the meeting. If you can't make it because your kid's sick, you're out of town, whatever, just call. And then you're not absent. You're excused. For those of you that are also new, I do suggest you print yourself a copy of RSA 32. And for those of new and even older members, if there are people that are interested in having a short training session some night and for questions and answers about different things you might be concerned on in the budget, that can be arranged. And Matt and Pat end up basically teaching the class. Okay. Also to let you know, we have a vacancy. Brandy Nunez was a member of this committee. She put her name in to become a replacement school board member and was chosen. By state law, she automatically ceased to be a member of the budget committee. She is the alternate for the school board. If Naomi can't come, she would come in her place. But she's not a voting member. So we have an opening. And because of the way the law is now, it is up to us to decide, do we want to put out a short blurb advertisement for a short period of time and see if we can get some candidates to come in to be interviewed and pick one? Or do we want to just go the rest of the budget year one down? I'm just looking for some suggestions as to what people want to do.
I move the former, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry,
I move the former.
which one?
Putting out a short blurb and inviting
Okay.
people to participate.
I agree.
Okay. Okay. So we will do that. We can get a thing out It'll be a short window, about a week or so. And if we get replies, then we'll have to...
It wasn't really a motion, though. It was a motion and a second.
Okay, all right. All those in favor of advertising, yeah, no, she's right. That's why we pay her the big bucks. Any other further discussion about Mr. Moa's motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes with one in the negative. Thanks, Chuck. And as you realize, the holiday season is coming upon us, so I don't know what, if anything, we'll get. And also, if we get somebody to apply, we can schedule a meeting, we can interview that person. We are not obligated to appoint that person or anybody if we don't feel comfortable with that person doing the job. It is our decision. So if we get replies, we'll end up having a meeting. If we don't, we'll have a longer time off between meetings. But you will get stuff about liaison assignments. Now it's time to reorganize. We have two offices, chair and vice chair. David?
I move to nominate Stan for chair.
Second.
Nominations for office do not need to be seconded. Are there any other nominations? Then I accept the nomination. Are there any other nominations for chair? I'm going to ask two more times. Are there any other nominations for chair? Third time and last one. Any other nominations? Nominations are closed. Mr. Moa?
Discussion on the motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think that it's ridiculous for anybody to want to change horses in midstream. Now, that would indicate that this was an exceptionally wide river, as you've been in midstream for some number of years.
32.
But I think it would be incumbently wise upon us to continue with your sage representation for the committee.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, Chuck. With that, and seeing as how there are no other nominations, all those in favor of me staying as chairman, please raise your hand. All those opposed? The motion was unanimous. Thank you all very much. I know we won't all agree this year, but we'll work hard and have a good time. And somebody could bring cookies one night if they want. That'd be nice. It is now time for public, I'm sorry, Vice Chair. Vice Chair. We do need to have a Vice Chair. It's been a long summer, folks. Trust me. Nominations for Vice Chair. I'd like to nominate Kevin Bobbitt. Do you accept? I don't. You don't accept? Okay. Thank you. All righty.
Anyone want to volunteer?
Any volunteers?
Stan, can I ask a question?
I'm going to nominate the Mayor of Merrimack, Chuck Moa. What's your question?
Well, I was going to ask, I don't think it's feasible, but I'm just running it by you to see. I did serve as vice chair once before, but that was when I was always here. Now I'm out of town a lot. Given your near-perfect attendance record, would there be any way I could serve as vice chair and conduct the meeting by telephone if push came to shove?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I would be willing to take it on if it's feasible, but I don't want to try and do something, trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
I
Well, Chuck
accept,
didn't
I
say he
accept the
accepted.
nomination.
I'll do it maybe next time.
All right. It sounds like we've got our
I gotta go right
problems.
now. That's the only.
It sounds like we've got our
Okay.
problems solved, so let's put that
Yeah,
discussion off.
I appreciate it, Carol, but I do think it would be next to impossible
That's kind
because
of
you
my
wouldn't be
thought.
able to see anything from 1,500 miles away.
That was my thought, but I was just throwing it out if we
Yeah.
didn't have another solution.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Last call. Hold on a second. I vote yes. Okay. All those in favor of Chuck as the vice chairman, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Congratulations, Chuck, as a hard-fought battle, right? I'd also like to remind everybody that we do have a limited capacity for participation via telephone. What I do not know is how many people you can have on that phone line at one time. I don't know. We've only ever had one, which has been Carol. I don't know if we can put two on there or not.
2 phones.
Well, yeah, but they got to have that
The connection,
VoIP unit there.
and I think that only takes one input, but I'm not sure.
I don't know.
We need
But
time to find out.
it's something to find out about. Should you not be able to come to the meeting, but you still want to participate somehow, you can do that. And let's see, we got everybody out there disguised as a blue seat, so I open public participation. Seeing no one, I close public participation. Is there anything else we need to go over? All right, just as a reminder, please remember to fill out your liaison request forms and turn them in. Before you leave this evening, please return your name badge to Pat, and you'll get it back at our next meeting. And we will definitely email the schedule to you. If you cannot make a meeting, call me, you have my phone number, or email me before the meeting. I'm a very reasonable person. Mr. Mower, anything else you'd like to say?
I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? We are adjourned. It was unanimous. Thank you all very much, and we will be in touch with you.
From them. There's a whole bunch of trips that are going through the intersection that may come to stop at their place, but they were already going through the intersection to get to home to wherever Olympic Village or down the road or another way across. So